Don't let death kill your family. Discover how to create family assets and protect your legacy. This is Henry Vargas, and I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of Henry's Lab, where today we're going to be talking about exactly that. Our guest specializes in helping people create family assets as well as protect their legacy so that when they pass, they avoid the conflict and chaos of family conflicts as well as the problems that might come from probate with the state. Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, this is welcome to the show, Shondell Curtis. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, brother Henry? How you doing, man?
Oh, I thought I couldn't be any better, but I'm even better now that I got you on the line with me, man. You got a
Hey,
beautiful background back there. I see the trees.
man, I just want to first say I appreciate the opportunity to speak on your podcast, man. This is so dope, man, and I just appreciate everything, the opportunity more than anything. So, man, I love you, Henry. Appreciate you, man.
Well, you're very welcome, and I definitely appreciate the love, and the love is definitely mutual. That's what we're all about here on Henry's Lab. You know that how love can apply practically to our lives and our businesses. So, Sean, tell us a little bit about your current business, what you're up to these days.
Awesome. My name is Shondo Curtis, originally from Oakland, California. I currently live in the Atlanta area, Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in the life insurance industry for the past 8.5 years. In February, it'll be 9 years officially. I've seen all kinds of different situations, from helping families get approved for policies to death claims to trust wills. I'm also a mobile notary. I've been helping families as well as that. So I've seen all kind of background information over the years. And I just want to be of some assistance. So I'm hoping I can add value to this call. I really want to have the opportunity to make this a really quality call for any listener that's listening out there. I'm hoping you get tremendous value. I really, really want to deliver for you guys.
Awesome. And I know that based on our previous conversations we were having today, man, this show is going to be spectacular. I know we've got a gem that people are going to be probably blowing up the comments, asking more information about, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So let's talk about exactly how you got started in this industry, because I know that it's a very personal story, and, we all like to know what drives people to, do what they're doing. So
Yeah,
give us a
yeah.
little bit of backstory about what got you into this industry.
Man, interesting enough, at the time, the idea that life insurance became a possibility, I think I was a senior in college, and I had a couple best friends that were older gentlemen, meaning 30. I'm at the time maybe 20, 21, gentlemen 35, 40, who were also students of the same college. Nonetheless, just kind of a natural bond, just friends, right?
Hmm.
One day, I hear my friend having a conversation, and he's like, "Man, believe it or not, I was at an event, and once again, he's an older gentleman. He's like, "Hey, I'm at an event, man, and I met this guy, and we started talking back and forth, and he started talking about the possibilities of life insurance, and he's like, he pulled out a check. He's like, yeah, I made like $16 million last year, and so this is a story he tells me, and so that
Yeah.
story had planted a seed in my mind. Was like, okay, you can make money on life insurance, right? Still didn't know anything about it, didn't know. It didn't go past the story, right? It was just,
Right.
oh, okay. I knew you can make
But
money in real estate.
it planted that
Right,
seed
right.
of what's a
I knew you can make
possibility.
money in real estate, and I knew you can make money on life insurance now. Okay. So anyway, I after my undergrad, I ended up deciding to go back to school for my master's degree. And during my first year of my master's degree, I had someone who was very close to me. I called her my mother. She was literally a second mother to me. But nonetheless, one of her sons, I think she had maybe five children total, but one of her sons also attended the same school, and that's kind of like how the bond kind of just created over the years.
Okay.
Randomly, I think she calls me and asks me what I'm doing. At the time, I don't think I was doing anything. I probably was sitting at home on the bed. She tells me, come here. I get in the car. I drive over. I get there. She's like, man, so what's your plan? What are you going to do? Hey, I've been thinking about, different things. I've actually been thinking about more recently life insurance. This is probably
Hmm.
just 6 months, maybe 6 to 8 months later. And
Okay.
so she was like, oh, really? She gets real quiet. She digs in her purse. She pulls out her phone. She calls someone. And she's like, hey, Lawrence, I want to introduce you to somebody. He's considering getting the life insurance. And so she gives me the phone. And so
Hmm.
anyway, I didn't want to let her down. Once again, this is my second mother, so I do to take the phone
Right.
call serious. Hey, my
For
name is
sure.
Sean. Heard you could do some great things in insurance and blase, blase. One thing led to another. I became an agent, right? So that's how it all
Okay.
started. So far, many years later, I have within my own insurance space, of course, Personal production. I've made over $1 million in commissions over my 9 years of production. I don't know the exact
That's good.
number. Of course, it's no way to tally that for myself, but
Right.
I know it's well over 1 million. As well
Awesome.
as helping other agents. I've also recruited and helped other agents get going who had absolutely
That's
no
huge.
knowledge of sales, no knowledge of life insurance. And so over the years, I've been able to produce some success, not only for myself, but for other people, which is more important. So
Absolutely. That brings up a key point, that part of expressing love in business is exactly not trying to keep it all for yourself and being able to help somebody who's in the path a little bit further behind you, help them get to a point where you are or where you were as you continue to progress as well.
exactly, exactly.
So I know you did have three things that you wanted to talk about today that we can help the folks with to add value. And so if you want, we can start getting into that, and then we can go from there. So what's the first thing that people can do to start creating assets for their family and protecting their legacy?
Well, great question. To kind of tie everything into where did this motivation come from in terms of wanting to help someone else?
Hmm.
About 2.5 years ago, my father, unfortunately, my family and I ended up burying my father due to a car accident. My dad was 47 years old, coming home from work. He
Oh
worked in the
wow,
city
very
of
young.
Richmond, California. At the time, Richmond, California, and unfortunately, he was leaving work. And as he was leaving work, going home, there was a woman, unfortunately, Alzheimer's and dementia, some type of maybe type of situation going on, and unfortunately, that car accident is what took my father away. Since that accident, though, I did not know anything about probate. I did not know anything about um, how.
Now, real quick, man, I don't mean to interrupt, but for for the audience, people who don't know what probate is, who've never heard the term, what if you could give us a brief definition of what probate is?
Exactly. So probate is, unfortunately, when well, fortunately and unfortunately, when someone passes away, they may have their estate themselves, whatever their accounts, their cars, homes, whatever the case may be. Probate is the process of having to go through to claim that one's estate, or seeing who's responsible for, or following through with this person's last with their with
Responsibilities and stuff.
exactly, according to court records and everything else regarding that. So it's an actual court
Okay.
process. It's a court process that happens when someone passes away. Typically, sometimes it can range anywhere between a year. I've seen 3, 4 years sometimes. But
Okay.
it's that process when someone passes away. That's a legal process in order to rightfully take over their estate, whatever the case may be, to divvy it up between the spouse, the children, or whoever that whatever that may be.
Got
The
it.
reason why
Okay.
I hesitated sometimes is sometimes probate is not necessary. So it's not always a guarantee that if someone passes away that a probate process will be necessary. So that's the reason
Okay.
why I hesitate. Some things that can prevent that are trust, wills. A person who's really organized and has things set in place probably won't need a probate process. So that's the reason why I want to give both sides of that.
Oh, okay. So a probate is probate process is kind of like something that people who aren't necessarily prepared have to go through. If you are prepared, it's something that you probably won't experience.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So
So
tell us a little bit more about what you were where you're going as you were telling us a little bit more about the story.
Regarding my father, once he had passed away, it kind of put me in a position where I needed to dig further. Reason being, my father, it was just unexpected, right? No one's, a sudden car crash. My father had 4 children, a wife, and it was just all up in the air. And so at
Hmm.
the time, and keep in mind, all of my dad's children were adults. So, we're talking a different situation versus small, minor children. I
Okay.
say that to say, going through this process and going through the legal process with probate, as well as legal process regarding the accidental death, it kind of opened my mind up much more than just life insurance. And so as
Okay.
a result, like I said, the more I learned, the more I want to share. It kind of had me digging into more of how could this be avoided for someone who doesn't have this experience, who doesn't have the money, and what can we do? God forbid. Of course, we can't. There's no amount of money to replace a life. At the same time, there are things we can do to organize ourselves to properly pass our legacy on in fashion. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That's a huge piece. And so, would you say then that the accident that happened with your father was probably the catalyst that really amplified the passion and wanting to help people and teach them and get this message out of the importance of preparing properly before a loved one passing to avoid conflict and chaos in family as well as the legal process of probate.
Exactly, exactly. Like I said, I from an agent's perspective, I knew the front end of it. However, actually going through the experience, it opened my mind to more of what all entailed. Unfortunately, when we have a loved one that passes away, so and there's a lot
And
more to it. But like I said,
for
I'm
sure.
hoping to get break it down a little bit by steps. But
Awesome. So the personal experience added depth to the knowledge. The knowledge you had it in your head, the front end, like you said, but then the experience took you through to actually get deep into the specific knowledge. So let's go ahead and start with some of the stuff. What's the first thing that somebody can do to create an asset and protect their legacy?
well, speaking of life insurance, right? Starting there, right? Life
Hmm.
insurance obviously is pivotal. It can definitely be two benefits, actually multiple benefits of life insurance. Most people think just a simple death benefit once someone passes away. That's the only way that life insurance works. That's not always the case. Of course, there's multiple various types of life insurance policies, term, whole life. The more recently, I hear people speaking about infinite banking and being your own self bank and things like that. And so as a result, um, it all depends on just the health situation as well as the financial circumstances or what their goals are, what their aspirations are looking to accomplish. So, like I was saying, yeah, it just varies. It just varies.
Okay, so the first thing that you would recommend a person to do would be maybe find an appropriate life insurance plan policy, correct? That would be whether
Exactly.
and from what you just said, from what I'm understanding, I've heard some of this concept of infinite banking as well. Um, Obviously, depending the position the person is in financially, if they're able to create a scenario like that, that would be very favorable because what are some of the benefits of creating or having that infinite banking, how that structure would work.
Awesome. So pretty simple. The concept is IUL policies or universal whole life policies. They're both the words are interchangeable. Nonetheless, there are whole life policies within based upon the market indexes. Also, with infinite banking, some of the other benefits that you experience is the compound interest effect that occurs within the premium. Sometimes you have people that may front load the policy, meaning they may dump a bunch of money into the policy up front. Sometimes you have people that pay the policy premium over the month's time. Both over time will add equity over time using compound interest. So based upon the market's performance, the beautiful thing about infinite banking is that you can only make money with those types of policies. When the market performs well, you make money. However, most times when the market's not performing well, in different products like 401ks, IRAs, you typically lose a lot of money. But having that money inside of an infinite banking account, there's a floor that protects you from loss. So the only thing that we can
Wow.
do is gain, never lose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. I didn't know about that. And for those who don't know, the concept of compound interest is actually what the banks do. That's how they make their money with your money. And basically, it's a lot of stuff, but it's a way that it helps. It's the best. It's been called the most powerful force in nature because compound interest makes your money make money so quickly that it'll blow your mind away. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What else would you share in that aspect or
Another key important. So sometimes members don't qualify for infinite banking policies. Sometimes we can have all the money that we want, and the insurance company just will not approve it based upon either previous medical conditions, or whatever. Sometimes there's a driving record. There are things that can prohibit you from having a infinite banking account. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
some of the other options, you also have traditional term insurance, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year terms. Pretty simple. Whole life policies. The difference between the two is the terms that's for temporary has that expiration period. So there's a possibility that sometimes a potential client could outlive a policy if they're not informed. On the other
Mhm.
end, a substitute to that would be the whole life policy, which remains steady for your whole life. It doesn't fluctuate typically, and it's just a more general, simple policy, kind of like a death benefit policy, meaning there's not really too many transactions. coming from a general whole life policy. They may borrow a little bit of the money,
Mhm.
nothing major though.
Right.
Not as advanced as an IUL based upon market performance.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So that was, we were just talking about the types of life insurance, because life insurance is a critical piece to avoiding probate and to making sure that you create and protect, because the life insurance itself is both an asset and a method to protect the asset that you've just created. It's particularly if you, it's the one like you were just saying, an infinite banking type policy. Now,
Exactly.
what are some of the other things? I believe you wanted to talk about trusts that would really help people as far as protecting the other assets that they accumulate.
Yeah, man. So the quickest thing I would say, the best tool to combat or to avoid probate would be a trust. A
Okay.
trust simplifies, it actually takes over the ownership of the asset versus it having to go through probate to transfer ownership of the asset. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So
100%.
by simply um and there's a multitude of different types of trust. You have revocable trust, irrevocable trust. There's many more. I use these examples to say, typically, traditionally, when you're talking about protecting your assets, more over than often, you're talking about a revocable trust.
Okay.
I've seen um, I've seen it cover cars. I've seen it cover property. I've seen it cover animals. If you have cattle and things like that, I've seen it cover and encompass all kinds of different things. So the beautiful thing about having that trust is that it also protects you from liability of risk of loss. So by having your assets in a separate entity, your own entity and your social separate, it'll be its own name, its own EIN, its own entity. So therefore, protecting you from liability, not necessarily completely, but definitely adding a layer of protection to giving you that separation between yourself and your assets while still maintaining ownership. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you just to make sure I am understanding the that layer of protection contextually is what? Is that like tax benefits that you don't get taxed as much because your assets are in the trust versus if they were all in your name? Or what is that layer of protection, if you can expand a little bit on that?
Exactly. So that's one layer of protection. Taxes is definitely one layer of protection. So definitely when you have your own personal assets and your personal, let's say, name and it's in your own personal possession, of course, there's a puts you in a different tax bracket as well. Having that asset also protects you from separating yourself from your assets, protects you from liability. Let's say, God forbid, you get into a car accident, you get sued. Now they're coming after everything that you own. Separating yourself from your assets will give you that legal layer of protection. Also speaking of those tax benefits, yeah, there's plenty of tax benefits within trust, especially if you combine the power of the tool of a trust along with life insurance. You can save yourself a lot on taxes, but of course that has to be properly done. And I definitely would suggest anyone who's interested in learning on how to utilize a trust and utilize life insurance to save on taxes to speak to a local professional. If they have any direct questions, things like that, maybe reach out to me. But
Sure.
I would don't try to do it by yourself. This is not something that you want to. It can be done, but if you want it done correctly, because there are different trust laws in each state, you want to sit down with a professional to make sure that this is getting done properly and that everything is protected. God forbid something ever happens, you don't want to start searching and trying to figure it out at that point in time.
Yeah.
You want to have it in
That
order.
it could be a mess. It could be a mess. So definitely something people want to do. And another reason they wouldn't want to try to do it on their own is because you have to increase a huge knowledge base in order to be able to make a properly informed decision. And that's where having
Yeah,
a
yeah,
professional would come in to guide you through that process. So, okay, so
exactly,
we've
exactly.
talked about trust, we've talked about life insurance, we've talked about this concept of infinite banking. Go ahead.
Something else that comes to
Hmm.
mind. As business has progressed for myself, I have also had clients reach out to me, or I've been able to secure clients. Let's say there is no trust, or someone suddenly passes away. Using my father, for example, I don't know my father's bank account information. I don't know whatever asset, car, truck, had cell phones are also considered, real estate, if you will. I'm not sure, that exact information. So what can a person do if they're in a situation where, hey, my loved one passed away? I'm not sure where to start in retrieving some of these documents, or what exactly do I do? I've been able to assist clients on actually recovering some of these assets over time as well. So to give an example, lost bank accounts, life insurance policies, 401ks, things that a person, a loved one who's coming behind you, taking care of your services, may not really know where to start or know where to look. Can also, has also been able, we've also been able to help clients retrieve some of those assets without their knowledge, without them even knowing about them. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what you're saying, and I know this is because from the conversation we were having previously, is that I believe you said that's called asset recovery. And so for those
Yes, sir.
listeners, what that is people, in your lifetime, if you've ever had a job, if you've ever had some kind of, bank account that maybe you forgot about it, whatever, there is money that you might be entitled to, or you might be able to access and recover that you're unaware of. And this is because either someone has passed, or maybe it's just been the time of expiration for that, or a certain amount of time has passed, that now takes that asset and gives it to the state. And what Sean is saying here is that you actually have a service, a possibility of being able to help people recover those assets through the methods that you're aware of, and the knowledge that you have.
Exactly, exactly. Kind of teaching people how to perform the proper searches on where to look, and kind of assisting them through that process so for themselves. So
Awesome.
that's also been another valuable gem available for, like I said, just more recent. That's been kind of coming up here. So that's been exciting. Just like I said, helping families recover assets and protecting assets. So that's
Definitely.
what we do over
So
here.
real quick, if so, for you that are listening, you're gonna want to reach out to Sean, because I want to know. I want most of us, almost everybody living, has had some family member pass or has had something occur, and so there's probably some sort of asset somewhere that he could help you recover. Not that he could help you recover, so that you can not so that those assets aren't just lost, but they are indeed returned to the family, so that you guys can proceed and continue to grow with that.
Exactly. If you don't mind, I would love to give an example. I actually have a client here in Decatur, Georgia. Gentleman, unfortunately, his mother had passed away to cancer. I want to say back in 2018. Unfortunately, of course, when that happened, that was the love of his life, his mother. He was the only child. Um, at the time, not really knowing how to cope with everything and deal with everything. Unfortunately, he let the house go due to tax foreclosures. The property was resold to another higher bidder. As a result, time had went on. He was just kind of picking himself up and picking the pieces up and kind of moving on. Unfortunately, I ended up reaching out to one of his contacts, his daughter actually, and his daughter had redirected me to the gentleman who was here in the Atlanta area. When I met Mr. McGee. Um, yeah, the gentleman had no knowledge of his mother's what the foreclosure laws were here in the Fulton County, Georgia area. He had no knowledge of his mother accounts. He had one account, but he wasn't sure of all of the accounts, 401ks and things like that. So currently we have a couple legal processes, we have a couple legal court processes pending right now, regarding his case, regarding his mother's tax foreclosures. I think this guy is owed over about, man, maybe 80 grand,
Wow.
90 grand. And
Wow.
this is money he didn't even know that existed, right? Until I came knocking and kind of informing him about the laws and kind of walking him through the process. So I've seen it, I've seen people have had another young lady, Miss Carolyn Hughes in, was it, what is it? Houston, Texas, I believe. Houston, Texas, from either Dallas or Houston. Houston, Texas. Nonetheless, she had an uncle she had never met before. And this particular uncle never had kids, never had a spouse. His parents had unfortunately passed away. Long story short, one day she gets a phone call and she gets informed that, hey, she's entitled to about 700 acres of land in Texas
Wow.
that she had no knowledge of. And so I use these examples of, not only is it life insurance policies, bank accounts. Sometimes you have an old. I've seen something as small as an electricity bill, or let's say a Verizon bill. Maybe you overpaid one month, and there is $55 sitting in an account somewhere that you haven't claimed yet. And so what happens is Verizon will then transfer that money over to the state, like you were saying, maybe after 3 to 7 years, depending on your state laws. As a result, now the state is holding that $56 for you, waiting for the rightful owner to claim that money. So asset recovery and lost funds, it's a whole nother podcast in
For sure.
itself. But valuable information. How can you avoid these types of assets being lost? Which ties back to the trust. Having your information organized, having your bank accounts, your expenses, meaning your bank account information, meaning if someone came behind you, would they be able to locate whatever assets you want them to find? Having that information organized with a trust, simplifies not only the probate process, it exiles the probate process if you do it correctly, and also transfer those assets so they're not lost. So there's knowledge of them. Maybe you don't want to tell them while you're alive. You want to keep your business to yourself. At the same time, once you pass on, you want to have that organized so that way, your family has full possession of their heirship. Does that make
Absolutely,
sense?
absolutely. And I don't know if the listeners caught this, so I want to make sure that I emphasize it. But I mean, that's 700 acres. That's a significant asset. 80 grand. That's a significant asset that can make a huge change in a person's life. So if you get nothing
Absolutely.
else from this podcast, make sure you contact Sean and ask him how he can help you find out if you have any assets that need recovering. Okay, so we've talked about life insurance, we've talked about the trust, and I believe the third thing you wanted to talk about was LLCs, right? As a method to protect.
Yeah. So earlier we talked about taxation and life insurance and having trust and how that can benefit you as well as taxation. However, having a proper business structure will be probably the strongest tool to make sure that you minimize your
Okay.
taxations. Whether it's property, whatever assets you own, we all have to pay taxes, of course. How do we minimize? How do we keep the money that it's not how much money you earn, it's how much money you get to keep. So we want to make sure that all of our hard earned hours that we put into our businesses, that we put into our jobs, we want to accumulate and keep those hours for ourselves and not give them over to Uncle Sam,
Absolutely.
right? In the form of a dollar. Right. So how does that business structure look like to properly protect yourself? And once again, not only through a taxation layer of protection, but also another legal protection, separating yourself from your assets. In my professional opinion, over the years, I have seen a common thread or a common structure between high-end clients. And it doesn't minimize this, but the common thread that I've seen is one, a holding
Hmm.
company. I've seen an S corp, which is where the taxation benefits start to come in, as well as having multiple LLCs, minimum 3
Okay.
LLCs. Now, someone listening may say, hey, what am I going to do with 3 LLCs, right? These could be passion projects. They don't necessarily have to be, high income earning, businesses where we're trying to make millions of dollars. These can be something as small as a pet walk or, something, a mobile notary service. If you're actually looking for, opportunity, these can be a variety of different types of businesses. Some are online, e-commerce, some are consulting, whatever you're into. What that does not only has the legal protection of, we're not even looking at it from an income perspective. Let's just put that down for a
Okay.
quick second. Not only does it have that legal protection separating you from the actual asset itself, but having multiple holding company, an S corp, and those multiple LLCs, you're able to push. Let's say have the. It's very tricky depending on how you set it up, but you can have your S corp be responsible for the L, or your S corp be responsible for your LLCs, and your holding company be responsible for your S corp, and your trust be responsible for the entire thing. So having that multitude of layer of protection keeps your assets at risk of loss. Once again, something as small as your friend coming down your steps and tripping down the steps, and now they want to sue you. That can change. That can literally change not only the relationship but your financial situation as
Absolutely.
well. So we got to
And
protect
people don't
yourself,
think stuff like that happens,
right?
but
So
it
once
happens.
again,
We buddy till I
you'll
break
be
my
so
leg in your
surprised.
house.
You'll be so surprised, man. You'll be so surprised, especially if someone knows that you have an
Yeah,
accumulation of wealth. It's one of those things you have. It's just
for
is what it
sure,
is,
for
right?
sure.
So with that being said, like I said, passion projects with your LLCs, or let's say you're interested in starting, an actual business, whatever your passion is, it's not necessarily, hey, I have to make millions of dollars, and in order for this financial structure to benefit me, that's not true.
Yeah.
This structure is going to benefit you in a multitude of ways, with the combination of a trust, a combination of life insurance. Yeah, these are the top three things I've seen over the years that most people, especially most insurance agents, aren't really
Mm,
talking about. Maybe on a surface level, but to really get in depth, to really actually protecting, the assets. This is what I've seen over the years. Been kind of like one of those secret hidden gems, and just, how does the rich
correct.
stay rich,
Correct.
right?
And with
So
that is yeah. So I was getting ready to say that, folks. What he just shared is this is real game right here. This is like so valuable right here because look what he just meant. This is stuff that he's learned from his high level clients. So people who have money, this is what they do to keep their money. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is that the U.S. tax structure is actually designed to encourage people to have these kinds of structures, these kinds of businesses, even if it's not necessarily a multi-million dollar business. The fact that you have that structure and that you're pursuing some kind of added value to society, whether it's a passion project like you said, photography or drawing or painting or singing, whatever it might be. They encourage that because I mean, people they complain all the time about so much taxes, but if you knew that the tax code was structured so that you can add that the more value you add to the economy, the greater tax benefits you get, which is
that's the key right there. That is the key. The more value that you add, the more tax. Let's
incentives.
say the less
Hmm.
taxes you pay. Yeah, the less taxes you pay is duplicity. The more value you add, the less you pay in taxes. So what does that mean? Also, I'm not encouraging anyone to quit their job or to start a passion, and to replace it with a passion project. It also can just be one of those things on the side that you add to, but because you're adding value to the marketplace, let's say, you have those tax codes, those tax
Hmm.
incentives, the word I was looking for, those tax incentives that will help those, minimize your costs in taxes, or kind of that reduction in taxes there for you. So it's not necessarily, you're not avoiding taxes. That's not
Right.
what we're promoting. That's not
Mm,
legal. I don't want
for
to, that's
sure.
not at all. I don't want to get that confused. At the same time, where does the tax benefits come from? You adding value to the marketplace and simplicity. Whatever cookies, whatever your side passion project is, whether it's an actual asset recovery business, insurance, whatever it is, whatever your passion project is, having that separate entity, separate from yourselves, gives you other tax incentives that you can also apply to your personal taxes as well as your business taxes. So, not, I would love to get more specific, but because the listener, it would have to be a case scenario, kind of mean
For
explaining
sure.
specifically, but at the same time, because every situation, each family is different, each listener is different. Um, it's hard for me to get really into the secret gems there in terms of what all is
For sure.
available for
We
you.
don't want to
But
overwhelm the
of course,
listeners
like I
either.
said, everyone,
So go ahead.
that's it, man. It gets deep. So I, if you see me hesitating, it's just because sometimes my mind gets flustered with thoughts, and I know that there's so much information and opportunity and value within a trust, the proper life insurance policy, and you having your business structure properly set up. Just starting there, even if you could, man, just imagine if we could start over and be 18 and just having those things
For
set up
sure.
first versus, learning along the way,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. So for sure. So, guys, for those of you watching, we're just about running down here on the interview, but I definitely want to encourage you guys. Let's give them some practical things that they can apply. So from what Sean is saying here is one, you want to make sure you get the proper life insurance. Remember, we're talking about creating assets and protecting your family's legacy. Okay, life insurance isn't just because people are trying to sell you something. If you understood that one of the main things for life insurance is income protection. So if you pass and you're the sole provider of your family, that puts your family in a pretty tight situation. So in addition to that, there's all the other benefits that we spoke about earlier. So you want to get the right insurance policy. If you can qualify for the infinite banking, that's the way to go. You want to set up a trust because that creates obviously a layer of protection, separation from the liabilities that may happen with the assets that you have, and as well as tax benefits. But then you also want to set up a series of business entities that are going to be in control of your assets. That way, you again can protect yourself from liability and increase your tax incentives. So, with that said, Sean,
Exactly.
where can people get a
Exactly.
hold of you? Because I know they're on fire. Oh, and the one other thing that I also wanted to mention, because this is the whole thing has been wonderful. But this is what I want you to understand. Right now, where you're at, you may be entitled. You may have the right to some assets that you are unaware of, and work with Sean and have him find those assets, see if you have them assets, and show you how to recover those. So, Sean, how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach out to you to follow up with this and find out how you can help them recover some of their assets?
Absolutely. I would love to help everyone that I possibly can. The best way to reach out to me would either be through Instagram, which is my name, Shondell, Shjondel. It's a few pictures and videos and things of myself, as well as, man, personal phone number. I don't know if
You can do it if you
that's
want to.
great.
You can.
Personal cell
That's no
phone number.
problem. You might get some.
Here. Yeah. Let me give you the
Okay,
office
yeah,
number.
there
Let
you
me not
go.
give you the personal cell phone number. Let me give you the office
Okay.
number. Let me see. 770-676-1770 here in Atlanta, Georgia. Once again, 770-676-1770.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
So, oh, excuse me,
Okay,
1770.
awesome.
I'm sorry.
And we're also, if you've got an email, we'll put that
Please forgive
in
me.
the description as well, so that people can follow that as well. And with that said, what are you got any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the people?
Man, honestly, I just brother to brother, Henry, I just want to say I commend you, man. You have spoken so much life into me. In the short time that we've met, we met at the
Yep.
Myron Golden conference, right? Right? I think I approached you. I don't know how we met, man, but ever since, man, you've just been a rock star in my life. And I just want to say personally, thank you, man, for the opportunity to speak with you, your audience. You're doing big things, man, and you got your hands in a bunch of other pots. So, you're motivating me to keep working, man. I'm trying to be like
I
you when I grow up,
appreciate that, my
man.
brother.
So, say that to, I say that to you out of love, brother. But for for the listener, if, oh man, if I could talk to my father again, man, I would love to spend, just another hour with my dad. It's not even about assets, money and all that other stuff. It's just that when that time strikes, man, it's unfortunately it's the end is the end. And so I only use this opportunity to say to anyone who is listening that, I'm hoping that this podcast at least starts the conversation, maybe for you and another loved one. Um, hey, no one can have eternity here on earth. And so just, I hope this motivates you to start a conversation about, hey, we need to start looking in this direction of protecting ourselves, protecting our assets. If you have a home now, and, entitled, you got to move those things out. You got to do the right thing for yourself and protect yourself. Just because life can happen either in the form of a lawsuit or, the form of death. I really just want people to get value and learn from the mistakes that I've seen other people make over the years and the wisdom that I've gathered through, just, like I said, just trying to be the best that I can be and, being open minded to new concepts and new ways of thinking. Um, yeah, man. Yeah, man. So I really want to just pour my
Absolutely.
heart out. That's more than anything. I'll take my
Awesome.
heart and give it
Awesome.
to you
So
all. So if you have any
awesome.
questions, just reach out to me, guys.
From what I'm hearing, Sean say is that he wants you to understand two things. One, start valuing the relationships you have. You know, tomorrow's not promised. Let the people that you love, let them know that you love them every day. And then secondly, start the conversation. It's not a pretty conversation. It's not an easy conversation. Nobody wants to think about death. But if you want to think about the life of those who come after you, then you might want to start considering that for you can so you can prepare before that day comes because we don't know when that may come, right? So Sean, thank you so much for taking this time with me, man. I appreciate the words. I appreciate your time, and really looking forward to catching up again, man. Likewise.
Hey, I love you,
You too.
man. You have a good one,
Peace
brother.
out.